Keith Lee celebrated his 37th birthday on Monday, and he tweeted out the following. Greetings and salutations. I could hear his voice in my head saying that as I read that. Greetings and salutations. This day is my birthday. It is not a happy birthday, but it is one that I am most grateful for. Several months ago, it was not a guarantee that I would make it to this day, so there is positivity in that. I paid all my medical bills from the many offices and machines that I frequented. There is positivity in that. And I do find it amusing that people believe anyone but me paid for my medical expenses. I was going to wait a couple of weeks, but I think it's time to look toward the future. Forward march, as I like to say. I am capable of so much more, and I cannot wait to see what it looks like properly. I have a wide array of interests and abilities. I also consider myself to be rather open-minded. Here is to a future that, for all intents and purposes, seems limitless. Well, WWE was not amused by the implication that they failed to pay his medical expenses, and they put out the following statement. Keith Lee's recent comments implying WWE failed to pay his medical bills are erroneous. WWE has an extensive healthcare program for the medical care of its in-ring performers, and Mr. Lee was part of this program while with the company. Should Mr. Lee have any concerns over the payment of his medical bills, he is welcome to address them with WWE. It is rare for WWE to issue a statement rebutting somebody calling them out for being shitty to someone, which happens all the time. And until we have all the details, if we ever do, I'm withholding judgment on this. I like Keith Lee. And I do agree with one thing that he said there in that statement, which is that he is capable of so much more. Anybody who is a fan of his work, who has followed his work even before he came to WWE, or saw what he was capable of in NXT, knows that he is capable of doing so much more. So I agree with that. And I like Keith Lee, and I think WWE did him dirty, absolutely. But the one thing I have never liked are all of his nebulous tweets, and just how vague they are, the vague tweets. If you've got something to say, just say it, or shut up about it. Until such time that you can say something about it, if for whatever reason legally you can't, then just pipe down, and when the time is right, speak your piece and tell your story. Because all that does is get people speculating, and when they speculate, they get yelled at on social media by Mia Yim. He has done this a lot since the beginning of the year, and I'm sure he has been incredibly frustrated. A lot of the fans of his work are equally frustrated as this year has gone by, and a lot of it was because he was sick. But still, the ways that he's been used or not used, believe me, there's a lot of frustration to go around when it comes to Keith Lee and WWE. Now he's implying that WWE did not help pay his medical bills. I assume related to his battle with COVID. Now, if he comes out later and says, well, that's not what happened, people just assumed. They took that little soundbite and they ran with it. Well, they assumed because you gave them a reason to assume. You know, WWE has done a lot of shitty things to a lot of people. It is easy to think that they did the same thing to Keith Lee. But if they insist that that is not the case, then maybe there's more to this than meets the eye. Maybe they think he got COVID outside the workplace, and therefore they shouldn't be responsible for an injury or an illness that was suffered outside the ring. We don't know. We don't know. We don't know when he got COVID, from who he got COVID from. If that has anything to do with what he's referring to, we don't know. But if he wants to talk about it, it sure would be nice if he would just come out and say it before people start piling on WWE for something they may or may not have done. There's a lot of reasons to pile on WWE. But in this case, we don't know what the facts are when it comes to what he's talking about. Because the one thing the WWE typically are very good about is taking care of talent that get hurt in the ring. COVID, though, is a whole different ball of wax. And it almost cost this guy his life. But if he's got something to say, I wish he would just come out and say it. The website Metro UK broke the story that Wyndham Rotunda, the former Bray Wyatt, is about to begin filming on a new horror film. Colossum Studios owner and special makeup effects artist Jason Baker tells the website he is a phenomenal collaborator. He has become a really good friend, and you're the first person that we're publicly telling this. We're starting a film at the end of the month. And the two of them apparently grew very close through his time, I guess Baker's time, working with WWE on the Firefly Funhouse stuff. He said 2 weeks ago, 2 weeks to go rather, we are filming in Tennessee. It is a feature film. It's something really new and different. I would say probably the best way to describe it is Itchy the Killer meets Xanadu. I don't know who Itchy the Killer is, but I've heard of Xanadu. This is all over my head. But it sounds interesting. They're not using any of the Fiend stuff. He says this is going to be something completely different, which I think legally I would imagine it would have to be different, even if they wanted to use the Fiend character or the puppets, from the Firefly Funhouse. This sounds very cool. He is perfect for this sort of thing. I can't wait to see it. I'm a horror movie buff, and I said I can never understand why he was never at least considered for some sort of horror role for WWE films while he was working for the company. It just seemed like it would have been the perfect fit. Meanwhile, Tony Khan has said that he has not had any recent discussions with Wyndham about coming to AEW. But that does not mean that it won't happen after he is done filming. ECW legend Sabu announced his retirement from wrestling on the Wrestling Shoot Interviews podcast this week. Says, I'm not doing real good. I hurt my back about a year ago and it's still been hurting. I wrestled a couple of weeks ago, but I shouldn't have. I've only wrestled like twice in the last year, and I only went to the gym a couple of times in the last year because I hurt my back. I'm probably not gonna wrestle no more. I'm probably just gonna do autograph signings and personal appearance type stuff. The key word there is probably. How many wrestlers have said, I will probably retire. I will probably never wrestle again. I would bet anything that this man has not wrestled his last match. In fact, when he was asked if there was one opponent who could get him back into the ring, he picked one. He picked Brock Lesnar. There's a better chance of me getting into the ring with Brock Lesnar than Sabu at this point. But he said, I would definitely get back in the ring for Brock Lesnar. I would love to wrestle him, especially if it was my final match. I would love to wrestle him. He's the best. He's a shooter. He's a good worker. He's my kind of opponent. I like big guys. I like wrestling big guys. I don't like wrestling guys like me because it's not that interesting. It's more interesting wrestling a guy like me against a guy like Brock Lesnar. He makes a great point. Some of Brock's best matches have been against guys smaller than him, right? Look at the matches with AJ Styles and Daniel Bryan and CM Punk and Seth Rollins. But Brock Lesnar against a broken down 56-year-old Sabu, I'm going to take a hard pass on that. But guaranteed, we have not seen the last of Sabu in a wrestling ring.